This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I am Steve Gould. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Got a great one lined up for you today. First, got to do a little housekeeping here. I want to, right off the top, I want to thank the people that contribute to the show, that sponsor the show personally. I love you guys. You're the best. I'm talking about Luke Erevig, new donator. Thank you. Let me know if I butchered that. Corey Payne, Brandon Hooker, Lauren Stimson, Jeremy Woods, Tony Fahey, Jacob Ruth, Rich Emery, William James Long. That's Deputy William James Long to you. The great Gary Steiner, Richard Wilson, Scott O'Donnell, David Diaz, Timothy Wright. Thank you. I love you. I'm in love with you. You guys are pretty much the only thing keeping the bills paid at this point. I mentioned before I've been in talks with some sponsors. I've gone back and forth, like tons of emails. I'm kind of like a little bit like I need like it to be something I can like, if they want a testimonial, I have to like, believe in it. So it makes it harder. But we are at the point where we have the numbers to have legitimate sponsorship. So I'm excited about that. But for now, the monthly donors are really they're really keeping the pirate ship afloat, or whatever Adam Carolla says. So thank you for that. Thank you for all the 5-star reviews. Please, that helps the show. 5-star reviews on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcast app. Follow the Instagram page and the Facebook page. All that helps helps a ton. I'm completely destroyed today. Past guest Broadway, you'll remember, he is also like a crazy fitness guy. He sent me, I said, I need a workout I can do in like 20 or 30 minutes. And he sent me like 6 different workouts, and I chose to do one today. And I had also promised to help my pastor put a fence up in his house. And like, I'm telling you, halfway, when you haven't worked out like a year and a half and you like hit it really hard, like this high intensity workout program. So halfway through I was like, nauseous, and I was nauseous for the following hour and a half as well. So tomorrow's going to be a nightmare, but I'm here, folks. I'm here, and we have one hell of a guest. This guy, we're lucky to get him on here. He's done a ton of his career. He's a total blue line badass. He's a defender of the police. He's been an active police officer since 1988. He did some time in patrol. Then he upped his game, got his law degree. He's got like 4 or 5 books, very popular books. From those books, the nonfiction books, he's actually donated over $35,000 to LEO families in need. I don't know if I mentioned, he's now an attorney. He is the attorney who got the Atlanta officer Garrett Rolfe, the decision to be fired and the charges reversed for the shooting of Rashard Brooks, which I read that and right away I was like, damn, that is amazing, because we're all sick of watching these injustices unfold on TV and feeling helpless. And this guy is he's part of the force out there that is reversing these BS decisions. He just started the Blue Line Lawyer. I'm sorry, my brother. I'm going to ask you about it when I bring you in, because I write like I'm a doctor, but I have a pea brain. So I'm going to ask you about that when I bring you in. But without further ado, I want to introduce you guys to Mr. Lance LoRusso, Esquire. Sir, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Damn, I was Googling you and getting your intro ready, and I saw the Officer Garrett Rolfe thing, and I was like, I have a damn hero coming on here. This is making my night, so thank you for coming.
Well, I appreciate it. I get to represent heroes. I'm not one, but I got the best job in the world. And we're still waiting on the criminal charges about Garrett, but I did sometime in 2021, got him his job back with back pay. So that was a good day at the office.
God bless you. That is truly amazing. And please tell me about the new initiative that you're doing that I botched, the Blue Line.
Sure, that's fine. It's called Blue Line Lawyer Institute, and it's a think tank for law enforcement advocacy based on taking care of officers who have been forced to use deadly force or any type of force in the course of their jobs to protect the public. So we're going to be looking at cutting edge techniques to represent them, also looking at breaking down these cases. August 17th to 19th, there'll be more information about, but we're having our first use of force summit for the Blue Line Lawyer Institute with some amazing speakers. So tell people to look at the Facebook page. They'll find it there, and the speakers will be very impressive. You will not be disappointed.
Sounds amazing, man. I love it. So cop in the 80s. That's great. Late 80s. I mean, being a cop when you could probably still operate as a cop should. So you're in the golden age of policing, and then you upgrade, go to law school and all that jazz. Like that's a major thing to overcome as well. But how were you able to stay active? Was it because you're a firearms instructor and use of force guy? And
yeah, having a good instructor around and somebody who knows their way around the academy is always helpful. Somebody's always going to find a resource for you. And there's a lot of really cool things about policing in the 80s. Probably the best was the aviator glasses I had. Come on. They were like that big, man. But it was a lot of fun. It was a crazy time. I remember when we first got dash cams, and we would chase folks up and down the interstate, and we didn't have radios that would talk to each other. We had an 800 system, and if you wanted a call for backup, I was a county police officer, so we had city jurisdictions, 6 city jurisdictions. A lot of times, if we wanted a call for backup from somebody, we had CVs running in our cars, so we could communicate with people that we were passing. Yeah, we weren't able to even talk to each other. So policing's come a long way, and man, I really appreciate the folks who, the people with the Band-Aids around their glasses and the pocket protectors, the engineers who really put their minds to work to keep cops safer, because it's a whole lot safer for them now in terms of being able to bring resources.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I was kind of part of getting law enforcement in early 2000 until now. So much has changed. I mean, even like calling in motor vehicle stops, it's not that long ago that, and some agencies still don't. They don't even call them in. They just are doing stops out there. But now I have a full laptop, touchscreen computer. They know where I am. I can start the stop myself silently, and dispatch sees it, or I can do it with the radio. I mean, there's so much out there, and we're always in contact with each other. Make sure you don't need backup.
Yeah, I'll tell you how much it's changed. I was a big car guy, always have been. And I remember the acronym from the police academy that they drilled into us, LTD, like a Ford LTD, location, tag, description.
Yeah.
So the first thing you give out is your location. Next one is the tag, and then is the description. That's 1988, the first time I heard that. So you had to make sure people knew where you were if that's the only thing you got out on the radio.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they showed us, when I was in police academy, they showed us some of the scary videos from that time of, highway patrolmen and sheriffs out there on their own getting, before you know it, 8 people get out of an El Dorado and they're tackling you and shooting you and stabbing you. And,
Yep.
You can't even get a radio call out. You're just screwed. So,
well, and that's what's really interesting now is we've got so many people. I was just talking to a group the other day. We got so many people now that their only impression of use of force, their only impression of what police did was TV and movies. And that's why you have this dichotomy now, because you can go on YouTube and see 100 videos in an hour of law enforcement officers on traffic stops, shootings, all sorts of other things, but it disconnects. It's not what they saw on TV. You don't have TJ Hooker chasing somebody and throwing a baton and tripping them and going over and handcuffing them. But their expectations are not being met. And I think that's sometimes why we have these disconnects and officers being vilified when they really weren't doing anything wrong.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. Lance, can you take us in the Wayback Machine to young Officer LoRusso with no Esquire? He's in a patrol car. Can you tell us about the first call you went on where you really got your adrenaline going? You were really like, "Ooh, this is for real."
Sure. Well, I'll give you 2, but the first thing to set the scene, young Officer LoRusso had a lot more hair. That's clear. So my FTO, Bob Littler, great guy, was a devotee of taking DUI drivers off the road. And as he said, I've never seen a business burglar. We were on morning watch. He said, I never saw a business burglar kill anybody, but I've seen a lot of DUI drivers kill people. Both of us
Sure.
were EMTs. So that was our belief at that time, and we both had seen it. So as a young recruit, I do remember, I think this finger still may be a little jacked up from grabbing a dashboard at about 120 miles an hour on a chase. And it's different when you're in the passenger seat.
Yes,
You are
I
pretty
agree.
much, you're like plankton. You cannot
awful.
control your own destiny in the water environment. But the other one, I had just been released, and to this day, I remember this, had just been released. And I got dispatched to a call of a person with an axe. I was the only person there. The backup was about 10 minutes away. And on July 10th of 1990, I was the first person in the door when a guy was holding a kid hostage at knife point up to his lap with a butcher knife up to a 3-year-old's throat. Those are the things you never unsee.
Yeah.
I can probably tell you what that room smelled like and describe things about that will never go away.
Yeah, absolutely. Did it end okay? I mean, what happened with the kid?
So with the hostage, the guy had some law enforcement experience. I was shooting a lot of competition. I was one of the top 20 shooters in the state, police shooters in the state for 6 years running. So if I could have just gotten a chance to get my primary out, I could have shot him pretty easily and missed the kid. But he kept pulling the knife up closer if we got to our gun. So long story short, my partner who was in the military grabbed the knife and I approached him. How's that? I approached him with my backup weapon that he didn't expect and vociferously encouraged him to drop the knife. Unfortunately, he decided to.
Right. Luckily for him.
Yes, and the word vociferously never came out of my mouth, but others did. Other words, a lot of other words did.
Shorter 4-letter words.
Yeah, lucky for him, quite frankly, lucky for the kid, and lucky for me and my partner. We didn't have to kill somebody that night.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were saying the first hot call you were talking about was going to just being in the car when that guy was driving?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. It was the first time I'd ever dealt with that. And,
Yes.
I knew he was in control, but, we had heard this stuff in the academy about how dangerous chases get and the unknowns of a traffic stop. And we were with another officer chasing two people racing up I-75.
Yeah.
And, it was pitch black dark. I mean, this is late 1980s in Cobb County, Georgia, in the country for all practical purposes on either side of the interstate. So if those folks had run, they were running into cow pastures and we're chasing them into the woods just with a flashlight that looked like Paul Revere's lantern.
I have a similar story being on training and being with a senior guy that was notoriously heavy-footed. And just, when you're in the pastures, you have no control, right? And you've never seen somebody drive like this. You're like, I mean, you have training at the police academy, but it's all a controlled course. You can spin out and go off. This guy's doing it through traffic. And, I'm like straightening my leg like I have a brake, ooh, like,
yeah.
You're just, oh my, it is like
Get home and your right leg's sore and it's like, why? It's like you've been pressing the floorboard into the headlights.
Yeah. And then, and you haven't even gotten to the call yet. So you're already crapping your pants, Oh man, that's too funny. Yeah, that lack of control is absolutely. It's like being in the back of a motorcycle or something. It's just you're just there for the ride, man. Anything could happen.
That's true.
Lance, can you tell us about a strange or bizarre thing you dealt with?
Sure. Just some absolutely nutso calls, and it's still just. It makes me laugh that my wife calls it the substitute teacher phenomenon. People think that cops on the street are the substitute teacher. They don't know anything. You could tell them your name
Right.
is something crazy and they're going to read it off the roll. They're not going to get it. I was on a day shift and near the interstate. And of course, day shift, the first priority is you get in the car, you got to go eat. It's a Sunday morning. So I was a nerd.
Food.
I was listening to my classical music on the way in the morning, about 6:30 in the morning, and going to meet my beat partners and see this guy walking on the side of the road, and he's wearing all white. So I'm thinking, I thought he was an escaped inmate. Go up there and talk to him. It turns out that he had been involved in a chase the night before, and I was kind of starting to put two and two together. And he said he was walking on foot on the interstate, which generally can't do. to go someplace about 30 miles away. So I was like, I don't know what kind of shoe leather you have, but that's probably
Right.
not going to work well. So he had given me a name. I know this is going to shock your listeners. We'll have some counseling available. He gave me a false name. I know
What?
we'll
People don't lie
we'll
to
help you
police
out a little
officers.
later. I'll give you a hug and a lifesaver. So I asked him if he had any ID, and he said no. I asked him again. I said, look, dude, I'm going to pat you down. You're making me kind of nervous. I'm pretty sure he'd give me a false name. Pat him down, and sitting in his shoe is a Florida driver's license.
Weird.
So I pull it out, and he's like, that's mine. I said, no, that's the state of Florida's. And I look at it, and it's a different name. So I hook him up, and I said, you lied to me. I said, you had a driver's license. And so help me, I even put it in the warrant application because I was laughing all the way to the jail. He said, I don't normally wear these shoes. Now, I mean, you can't make that up.
It's an airtight
to
defense.
Yes, I used to kid my FTO that we owed some of these people cover charges, much less charges to go get bonded out on. I mean, there's comedy clubs where a comedian's dying for a joke like that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. It's like the guy you get goes by at like 50 and a 30, and you're just looking for something to do. You pull him over. He's got like a bunch of warrants. It's like, why are you doing that? You're so dumb. I wasn't even about to pull you over, but you're driving like a knucklehead.
Are you suggesting that somebody who would commit crimes would not follow the speed limit? And now I need counseling. Don't armed robbers drive the speed limit away from banks? I mean, it's crazy.
It's almost compulsively breaking the law.
And for some folks, that is their religion. Laws just don't apply to them, which
Right.
a lot of people don't understand. The concept of the whole defund the police, which I said is the fastest conceived, implemented, and failed social policy in the United States.
Oh my gosh.
The reason law enforcement knew it wasn't going to work is the people that live behind metal detectors and security fences, they weren't going to be affected. It was the people in poor communities that weren't going to have the police around.
Yeah, I say it all the time. I during this whole thing, obviously, I'm paying attention, and they'll do a man on the street thing in actual poor neighborhoods, and the poor people are like, we want more police. We don't see you guys enough. Like one guy was like, my two sons that were murdered, and I wish I saw cops here more. It's like it's not reality. That's it's the 10%, the extreme people pumping that out. And then my buddy Ken, who co-hosts with me sometimes. He's a retired LAPD officer and runs policebackground.net. He kind of helps police officers put their best foot forward in the application process.
Mm-hmm.
He was telling me, like the Pacific Northwest now, like the biggest offenders of the defunding thing, they're offering $20,000 to $30,000 a sign-on bonus if you're trained. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
Not that high, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of agencies across the United States that are offering bonuses for officers to move. The state of Florida famously offered $5,000 to any certified officer who came to Florida. And I did an interview last Friday with a national news source about this crazy phenomenon that in Washington, they had said that officers were not allowed to chase, and shocking, people weren't stopping for them anymore.
Right.
I mean, who thought that would happen?
Right. Yeah. We have a city near me, Springfield, Mass, and it's pretty much like across the board, everywhere you don't chase a motorcycle. They just don't want you chasing one because it's always going to be bad for the motorcycle because it's already super dangerous. So it's kind of about the policy. Well, what did the gangsters do in Springfield? They all bought quads and they all bought dirt bikes. They wear face masks. They're completely unidentifiable. It's like the Wild West. I was talking to cops that work there, and they said they'll pull up on either side of our cruiser and do wheelies through red lights. They'll jump over the front of the cruiser, just egging us on. It's like, it's. I guess what they say, common sense isn't common, and that's true.
Yeah, and some of those folks aren't wearing helmets, so Darwin would probably have something to say about that. But we're seeing it all over the place. People running down the interstates on quads. Just off-road vehicles. But eventually, the law of physics, when they try to occupy the same space at the same time with another vehicle, usually catches up with them. That is one law that generally they should not flaunt. The law of gravity and the law of physics.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, those are two they can't avoid. It's like the guy that stopped that guy that left like aerospace research in the Southwest. He's strapped a rocket to his car and they found him like embedded into a cliff. Like it was in the Darwin Awards like 20 years ago.
Yep. I remember reading that, the JATO that he strapped. It was some weird car, like a 67 Pontiac or something like that. So
Yeah, that was amazing. I wanted to ask you. I wrote this down because I don't want to forget. Police Academy. You were in Georgia.
yes,
So what was Police Academy in 1988 in Georgia like?
6 weeks had just been expanded to 6 weeks, and right after I went through, Georgia changed the law, and you had to go to the academy before you could be a cop. Prior to that, you could work for 11 months and 29 days before you went to the academy. Clearly, because 11 months and 30 days would be outrageous.
Irresponsible.
But, it would be completely irresponsible. So, yeah, they had just changed that. And that's one of the things that bothers me when people talk about law enforcement officers aren't trained. I've seen it. I've seen it over the course of 30-something years, that the amount of training has increased, and the amount of realistic training that goes into the decision making. So this notion that cops, fog a mirror and they give them a gun and badge, that's just not true. I mean, the amount of diligence, the amount of testing, the amount of evaluation that goes into the average officer on the street is infinitely better than it was 30 years ago. And those implementations were put in by law enforcement. They weren't put in by some politicians. It's kind of like people talking about all these non-lethal weapons. Well, they were developed by law enforcement. They weren't developed by a city council member. They're developed by cops because they want to be able to take people into custody with the least amount of force they had to.
Right. No credit given, of course. It's like, cops just sign up. They just want to kill people. That's what they sign up for. But yes, everybody wants to live with having to shoot somebody. That's great.
I have represented just shy of 150 officers in officer-involved shootings and critical incidents, and I can tell you that it has changed the lives of every single one of them forever. Yeah,
absolutely, and probably not in a great way.
No, they'll carry it with them forever.
Yeah, my dad was he's retired now, but he was a policeman in Massachusetts. He started in the 70s, and there was no police academy. He went because Cape Cod, Massachusetts, like the
sure did.
Little arm of Massachusetts there. He was a cop on Cape Cod, and the state law at the time was if your town has less than 3,500 people, officers don't need to go to police academy. So he worked for 3 years, and he said the chief brought him into the office and was like, "Hey, we got 3,501 people in town." And he's like, "No."
That's awesome.
He's like, "Are you kidding?" He's like, I've been doing the night beat for 3 years." He goes, "Yeah, you got to go to academy." So,
well, but here's what's funny about that. You know who was really mad? As much as people kid the cops, who was really mad were the people who ran the town, because now they had to pay for him to go to the academy.
Exactly.
It's the line item budget that they were upset about.
Yeah. And you have to do it or you have no cops. Yeah, that's, training cops is expensive. Like you were saying, it's academies now, some of them are just over the top. It's like, get the guy on the job to train. Like some of them are up almost 30 weeks. It's like, holy cow. And I know overseas, like Germany and Italy and stuff there, it's like a 4-year college experience. You live in the dormitory as a cop, you train. I don't know if the pay is better or something, but they really put a lot of time into training over there.
There are people that have pushed for that, and there certainly are degreed programs that are done in conjunction with certifications throughout the United States, but they're few and far between. And what's really interesting, I've lectured in a lot of CJ programs, and some of the CJ programs really are more sociology-based than they are law enforcement. So people say, well, I want to get a criminal justice degree, and I'm talking to them afterwards, and they're like, I wonder if I can move to the public administration section, because this is not what I signed on for.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I know Massachusetts has a few state colleges that do like the 4-year degree, and then the last 6 months is police academy. If you want to be, plenty of people go on to be attorneys and stuff, but if you want to be a cop, they offer that as part of the program, and I guess it's turning out some pretty good level-headed officers, and it's a huge value to any municipality, as you know, because now I took care of that $30,000 bill. I'm now they can go wherever they want,
Absolutely. And to your point, everybody's talking about, defunding the police, but the cost of training is incredible. The only two parts of a police budget that are discretionary are training and travel, and you usually travel to go to training. So when you pull funds from a police department, you just wind up decreasing the amount of training that they're getting. And I know cops who would love to go to a 30-week school, but somebody's got to pay for it.
Yeah. Yep. That's why only command staff can go to the FBI Academy or whatever. Like I know so many towns that have like 2,000 residents, and the second in command goes to FBI Academy. And I'm like, who signed up? Why? I mean, great, but like, who signed off at that? He's like a third of the police department, and he's going to be at Quantico for the next 6 months, becoming certified with the FBI. It's like, I mean, I guess it's cool, but I don't see the benefit to the town, really. A town that little,
Well, and that was the purpose of the FBI National Academy when it started, was to basically allow smaller towns, smaller jurisdictions to have people spread out throughout the country who had that type of training. And I can't remember the name of the police chief, and I apologize. South Carolina, a woman named Susan Smith drowned both of her kids by putting them in a car and letting the car roll into a river.
Oh, yeah.
And he had just been through the FBI Academy. And, when the FBI came in, because she was saying that somebody had abducted him, there's interviews out there you can see about the interrelationship between the FBI and the locals that really ended up really pushing that case to a conclusion. Sad conclusion, but conclusion.
Yeah. I recently went to a training had a few FBI agents, and they were, they choose the quirkier, funnier ones to do presentations, and they were, they were fun, because we don't work with them a lot, So when you meet one or work with one, it's kind of like, I don't even know what their jurisdiction is for anything. I went to a Christmas party once, and there was a new Boston FBI guy there that was a friend of a friend. He had been a manager at Best Buy, and he finally got into the FBI. He was like 30, and great guy. And he said every state treats the FBI different. He goes, in Virginia, we're peace officers, like a cop. He goes, in Massachusetts, the manager of my field office said, do not get into it when you're not on duty. He said, I don't want you stopping a car, doing anything, because it's really not, Massachusetts really does not give you the old blessing for that. They give you
I've
federal authority.
I was a use of force expert in a case in Virginia. So all states are different how they decide to skin that cat and decide, what do we do with these federal people that carry guns and badges?
Right. That's so weird.
We actually call them when we need help, but they're running around here all the time. Are they law enforcement? Are they not law enforcement? So I'm actually involved in a case right now where that's the very issue. So it's fascinating from a public policy perspective.
Yeah.
And to your friend's point that every state treats them differently, but they'll sure call them when there's a missing kid or when there's a terrorist action going on.
Yeah, of course. I thought that was the Virginia thing makes sense. Just get them sworn. They go to the FBI Academy. I'm sure they're good to go. Whatever. I don't know why, but as you know, chiefs have their little fiefdoms and they have their power plays, and they want to know what's going on in their community. They don't want rogue people running around. And to an extent, I agree. Like I don't think I really want like a national police force. I like how it's broken up by the states, but I don't think our federal agents really fit the bill there. They're not uniformed. They're not marked cars. They're not doing routine patrols, stops. They're not doing that type of thing. So I don't see the issue with just making them peace officer status. Why give them something else to worry about? It's like, just let them go.
Yeah, and it's really interesting when you talk about people getting into things off duty, and obviously this may be another podcast, but I think those folks understand Graham versus Connor. I would want them armed in the grocery store when some nut comes in there, meaning harm to everybody there. But yeah, that's been a controversy in several different areas.
Yeah, that's super fascinating to me. I think that stuff is so neat. Like we had the town I worked for on the Cape for 10 years we had a national park in the town, and they had rangers and they had a law authority, but we also swore them in for our town so they could leave the boundaries of the park and not have like a special need to, they could just do normal motor vehicle stuff. But in the park, I've said this before in the podcast, but in the federal park, you could pull people over and yank them, get out of the car, search their car because you're on a park road. But then if they come out on Route 6 in Massachusetts, they start ordering people out. It's like, ooh, different. Your little policeman hat for Massachusetts does not give you the authority to start searching people's vehicles.
Yeah, it's like driving onto a military base. We're searching your car. Why? Because it's Tuesday.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Lance, can you tell us one of your most intense or terrifying calls?
I would say that it's calls where things could have gone a couple of different ways. And for a period of time, and the public really doesn't understand this. This is not the person shooting at you. This is not the guy with the bomb coming out of the business. It's just the potential for danger to the public and to the officers. And there's hundreds of calls like this that I've been on, and your listeners have, where we write up the reports at the end and all the good guys went home, but that outcome was uncertain for a long time.
Right.
And some of those have to do with getting the resources to protect folks. Some of them have to do with just the the uncertainty of what's actually going on. I worked an armed robbery call one time. It happened to be drug related, but the person I got there ready to call answer a call for that. Get there, and I'm looking at this apartment complex. And like, this is going to be interesting. And the person says, "Yeah, I'm out of the house." I said, "Were you robbed?" He goes, "Yeah." He's got his face is swollen. He said, "But they left a bomb inside, so I thought I'd get out." I'm like,
"Oh,
what?" There was that word there.
Excuse me?
They left a what? And I go up there, and there's this, wrapped package sitting there. It turned out to be nothing. But
at that moment,
you go from answering an armed robbery call to evacuating a half dozen buildings and telling people that they need to leave and get out of their houses. And, I guess you could have avoided that doesn't look like a bomb.
Right.
But, like we said, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's very intense because it's like you're in proximity to said bomb. Are you going to be delimbed while you're trying to call this thing in? Like, who knows?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's freaky. I used to work with some old timers, and people would bring in, we had a target ship off Cape Cod where they used to bomb it. People would go watch, and the military would bomb this target ship, and they're shooting rounds at it. To this day, it blows my mind that they were firing live ammo in the middle of, Cape Cod Bay at a old boat, and people just watch. I mean, some of those rounds skipped and stuff, but anyways, they'll find a bomb, they'll drag up a bomb in their scallop dragger,
Yep.
Never exploded, and I've seen guys take me like, they're like, yeah, it's fine, it's a paperweight. I'm like, that's a bomb. I'm not so sure. Sure enough, the state police comes and they ignite it, they blow up.
Yep. Famously, if you go to Pearl Harbor, there was a excavation that was being done, and they found a torpedo that had been in the mud for, I forget, it was 40 years. And
wow.
they blew the side out of it, but they put a reverse charge on it so they could preserve some of it. But yeah, it had live powder in it.
That's crazy. Yeah, stuff lasts forever. I have ammunition that was given to me that's like almost 40 years old now. It all goes it all goes bang at the range. There ain't no thing.
That's true.
It just goes. Oh, what did I write down here? Oh, I wanted to ask you, just to go off topic for a second. When you're an attorney and you have a different kind of pressure now. When you get a call or when you're supposed to like defend like someone for the Rayshard Brooks shooting, how intense is that? Like that would, I'd be excited, but I would be like nervous. Like this is it. You're going to have it's on you. Spotlight's on you. You are the blue line attorney. You're there to back the boys, defend them. That's a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah, it starts with, for us, it starts earlier than that. So 2:30 on Sunday morning, this past Sunday, I drove to Columbus, Georgia to respond to a shooting. And you get there, you're on the scene. We respond out to the scene of these shootings. We responded to 30 officer-involved shootings last year.
Wow.
And
their unions just call you? Or the city calls you?
Yeah, I'm the general counsel for the Georgia Fraternal Order of Police. So most of them are FOP members, and very honored to win FOP Attorney of the Year in 2021.
Very cool.
The officers call us out there, and that's really where it begins. But, lawyers in general have people put their safety, their lives, their well-being in their hands, whether you're a guardian ad litem for an abused child or whether you're helping out a senior citizen who can't make their own decisions anymore. But, with all the vitriol and all the craziness right now, representing some of these cops in high-profile cases, and I say this with all sincerity, a lot of times we're all they have. They're afraid to get on social media. I've represented cops who are afraid to go to the grocery store.
Yeah, you never think about that, but yeah.
And, the number one complaint of officers after a shooting is isolation. So I tell people all the time, if somebody in your agency is involved in a shooting, assign somebody in command staff who's unrelated to the case to own them. Visit them every day, call them every day, bring groceries by, check on them so they don't feel like they're isolated.
Yeah, absolutely. I've known officers in the past that have been like wrongly accused of things, and it blew up, and it was in the paper, and it wouldn't go away, and they ended up, it's all redacted, 20 months later, and they're okay. But in that period, like they don't even want to, like you said, no one guy specifically wouldn't like even leave his house because all this stuff's out there about them, and they're known who they are. Their picture's been everywhere. It's like they just don't want to run into somebody, and get whatever, attacked, yelled at, screamed at. They're just freaked out.
Or their kids are being called the child of a murderer at school, and
man.
it never ends. And now with social media, the amount of nonsense that people will say, assuming it's anonymous, is just incredible. They wouldn't say it to somebody's face on a bet, but they will come out and blast someone and accuse them of all different things. And it's really hard to get away from social media. We used to kid around that we had cops that had never been in a physical confrontation, and now they're going to the police academy. Now we got people whose only confrontation they've ever had in their lives is getting a text in all capital letters, and they're upset for 3 days about it. So, they live by social media. So now you go, all right, dude, so stay home. Don't hang out with your friend. Oh, yeah, stay off social media. You can't be doing that. It's hard. They're instantly isolated.
Yeah, man, that's awful. And there must be some kind of support teams, or your team checks in on them or whatever.
We check in on them constantly. We encourage the agencies, because some of them have never been through this. They've never had an officer-involved shooting. We encourage them to assign someone to take care of them. We also work with some pastors and some counselors to make sure they have a free outlet. If your state does not have a peer counselor privilege, I really encourage you to look into it. It's a very, very worthwhile program. People get some training, and as long as they are not the person in the incident, they have a privilege that's recognized at law, so the person can decompress and actually have a conversation with someone without having to worry about it getting back to someone, because sometimes they just need to talk.
Yeah, that's great that they're followed like that. I'm curious, when there is a shooting, when do you recommend, or when is most policy demand that an officer give their statement of what happened? Like in Georgia, how do you guys do it?
So that's a 3-hour show. But I talk about this in my first nonfiction book, When Cops Kill: The Aftermath of a Critical Incident. The first thing we tell people is, as soon as the smoke clears, as soon as you've made arrangements for first aid, as soon as you've secured the scene, you need to call an attorney. And people say, well, I don't know why they do that. So, well, I guarantee you, a homeowner who shoots somebody who kicks their door in at 3 a.m, they're going to call the family lawyer as soon as the smoke clears.
Sure.
So the question of them giving a statement really has to do with whether or not they can. I have had officers who were on a total adrenaline dump. I've had officers that I literally had to stay awake while they were talking to me. And for them to give a statement that their future and their agency's future is going to depend on for criminal investigations and civil investigations, when they can barely stay awake, or they're injured,
right,
or they need to go get checked out at the hospital, is just absolute craziness. So those statements can wait. Generally, there's a lot of recommendations about 2 to 3 sleep cycles before the officer gives a statement. And, the focus of the officer is a really big issue. So your ability to perceive and recall is going to be different than a body camera. In addition, the body camera is never going to see what the officer sees, because it sees differently in low light and no light. It also processes information differently. It does not follow your eyes. So this notion that, well, we know what happened because we can see the body camera, is absolute nonsense.
That's the danger of video.
We're getting to a point where I think people are starting to realize that they're now starting to see what happens. But as you said, and I talk about this, I have another book called Blue News, where I talk about the intersection of media and law enforcement, another nonfiction book, We Donate All the Profits, where you have a rush to get the story out. Then 6 to 8 months later, you get the facts out, but the media has moved on to something else. Social media has moved on to something else. So the fact that the officer was cleared is not going to get there. So as I've told people, you have two options after an officer involved shooting. You can have quick answers or a thorough investigation, but you can't have both.
Yeah. That isn't that always it with everything to do with law enforcement. You need to wait and see. You need to. I mean, the media can't do that. They just physically can't do it. They have to grab something and go.
It's not their job. Their job is
Right.
to inform. Their job is to investigate, and part of their obligation to their shareholders is to sell advertising. So they can't be the people who said, "Okay, there was an officer involved shooting last night." If you think about this, people need to cut them a little bit of slack. There was an officer involved shooting last night. We're going to wait 6 months for the tox results to come back to tell you what happened. Their viewership would never tolerate that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's true. You would hope that the general public would be hip to, by now, especially at the way the media's been the last 5 years. You'd think they would get it. I mean, are they always lying? No, but does it turn out to be not true what they say? A lot. It really is inaccurate a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of times that inaccuracy is based on the news cycle. And they used to have a regular news cycle that was predictable. Now you've got what I call a zero-time news cycle. It's just they're competing with each other, and there's no break between the stories. So
it's constant.
I think what's really happening, I think the public has recognized that we can't do without law enforcement, that we need good people in law enforcement, and we need to keep good people in law enforcement. So I think the public is demanding a different level of analysis of these shootings, whether it's from media sources, whether it's from government entities, whether it's just from a politician standing up and giving an opinion, that they want the facts. They don't want the sensationalism, because it's important to them to know exactly what happened and what their law enforcement officers did. And quite frankly, when people serve on a grand jury and they realize how dangerous some people are in their community, it wakes them up. They want to know the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's a lot. That's, so you're available all the time then, or someone on your team is. Maybe not necessarily you.
We respond out to these shootings. We swap off on call. And some of the cases get pretty crazy. Sometimes there's more than one officer involved. And, we've responded to shootings where officers have been shot. Represented an officer a few years ago who got shot in the chest. Fortunately, it was low chest. It was right over his vest. And about 3 days later, my wife's looking at me, and I'm usually fairly even-keeled. And she's like, "You okay?" I said, "No, I'm mad. This guy got shot because he was wearing a uniform. The guy that shot him didn't know him from Adam's house cat, as we say in the South. He didn't know what he was doing there. He didn't have a beef against him. He just wanted to shoot him because he's wearing a uniform." It's hard to see that up front and see that massive black and blue bruise. And, you talk about bringing back a memory. And be in the ER when that officer's wife gets there in the back of a police car being driven to the hospital, and she sees that big bruise on her husband's chest for the first time. That's a gut check.
Yeah.
And then they're all looking at you going, "How are you going to protect us?"
Yeah. That's crazy, man. Well, I'm glad you're out there doing it.
No, it's the best job in the world, man. It is an incredible honor to be trusted by these folks and for them to put their careers and their freedom in our hands. There's no better endorsement, but really there's no better honor than to have somebody say, "I need you to protect me."
Yeah.
That's what they do to the public every day.
Yeah. First of all, I'm glad you agreed to come on the podcast and to get your name out there. I mean, I wish, all these scumbags that prey on police shootings, for BLM and all that, I forget the guy's name specifically, but he's like every single shooting he goes to, and he cuddles up to the family and whispers in their ear they're going to get all this money. I would name him. I just don't remember his name. But you hear all about.
I wouldn't if I knew it. I don't give him any airtime.
Yeah, good point. So you hear all about these guys all the time, but I wish I'd heard of you. I mean, what you're doing is amazing, and you've been a part of some pretty high-profile cases. You should get a little bit more cred, man. Come on.
Well, it's about the clients, not me. I mean, we write the books to help people kind of get the word out. And this sounds really strange. I mean, I know one of the questions that you had was, what's your advice to young officers? It's not just the officers, it's their families. First of all, if they're in it, please stay in it, because God knows we need you.
Yes.
And it's hard right now for their families to see what's going on. But don't listen to the noise. The public supports you. They overwhelmingly support you. And most importantly, when you raised your hand,
Right.
had your hand on a Bible, and you took that oath, the people that you swore to protect really need you, and they are relying on you.
That's true. I've had so many guests say that before. Like, if you start, excuse me, going down that negative rabbit hole, it's like, it's not true. There's a lot of people that love you, that love police officers and are so grateful. It's just, you only hear the jerks, you know, you hear the loudest jerks. That's all you hear. You just got to tune them out, because it isn't true. Communities all around this country love the police. Absolutely.
Yeah, and to the people that don't, stop calling them.
Right. Try it
If
without
you
them.
don't like them, don't call them. If you really believe that every cop running around, or even every third cop running around, is a homicidal maniac that hates people, why would you ever call 911? Because you don't know which one you're going to get, Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde. So you stay in your house, stop calling 911, and let them take care of the people that really want their help.
Yeah.
I don't have a chain of command, so I can say that.
I'm on board, man. Absolutely. Can you tell us a heartwarming story?
Oh yeah, God, just plenty of times where, and it sounds strange, but you just they always meant a lot to me. We just stopped and helped somebody on the side of the road. You know, before cell phones, I'm dating myself. We weren't no horse-drawn police cars. Okay, we just didn't have cell phones. We had actual
Right.
cars with gas and stuff. I can remember stopping and changing a tire for a woman. It was 20 degrees. She was on an overpass on I-75, and they were freezing, and they were afraid to run the car because they were afraid to run out of gas. It was a minivan that was in some pretty bad shape. It was a blue minivan, I'll never forget. And she had a couple of kids in there, and she was alone. She was scared. And dude, we were her heroes. She had no way to call for help. She couldn't walk with two toddlers on the roadway to go get help. And my
Yeah.
beat partner and I stopped, put her kids in the back seat of the car, gave them these little teddy bears that somebody had given us to give out to kids, and then the two of us tried to find a way to change a tire in a van we'd never seen before, because the wreckers were busy. So I still remember that. It was heartwarming to me, and I'm sure that's part of her personal story and her family's story. And I'd like to think that those kids never forgot that the people who kept them safe that day and kept them warm, literally warm, were wearing uniforms.
Yeah, you're right.
They
Absolutely.
do it every day across this country.
Yeah, it seems like a minor thing to you when you're working, but that memories like that, she probably went and told people that for months. That story, you know, it's a big impact.
Yep.
No, I just thought of, which is funny, is when you're talking about that era of policing, there was, I mean, people then, and not that long ago, would legitimately get lost because you don't have a phone that tells you. I mean, people would really get lost. They'd have maps out. You'd see the same car go by. You know what I mean? Like, and I experience that now because I work out in the sticks, and we do police services for a couple towns, and it's. I mean, no complaints. I like being a country cop, but it happens out there because there's spots where there's no cell phone, and I've seen people go by again. I'm like, this person's lost, and then they come up to you and they're like, was not prepared for this. I started to cut through your area, and my phone doesn't work. I don't know how to help me get to, like, one lady wanted to go to Northampton, which is a bigger city, an older woman, and she was like panicked. She's like, I'm lost. I'm running out of gas. And I was like, okay. So I drove her, and I drove her all the way to the highway, like
Good for you.
15, 20 minutes. I'm like, just follow me. I took her all the way. I was started to explain it to her, and I was like, no, I'm going to find you later, out of gas, crying. But yeah, it's kind of like an 80s vortex where I work.
Can I tell you another funny story about that?
Yeah, please do.
So Marietta, Georgia sits just north of Atlanta. And there's a road that goes around Atlanta called 285. And Chattanooga is about an hour and 45 minutes, depending how you drive. So I'm on a traffic stop just north of the perimeter, so just north of Atlanta. And this car pulls over, and they needed directions. So I said, well, just give me a minute. I cleared the violator out there. And of course, I give out the tag, and I noticed it was a Fulton County tag, so they're from further south than I am. And they said, "How far is Chattanooga?" It's kind of a weird, question.
Yeah.
And I said, "About an hour and a half." And they look around in the car. They're like, 4 people in the car. Another hour and a half? So how long have you been on the road? Almost 3 hours. So where are you coming from? I said, College Park. I said, do you know where you are? And College Park is down by the Atlanta airport. I said, do you know where you are? And they said, no. I said, Marietta. And they were like, Marietta? So then they put it together. They're about 15 miles from Chattanooga, and somebody had to use the bathroom. So they get off, and they get on going southbound on 75.
Oh.
And they drove almost all the way back to Atlanta before they realized they must have pulled off on the street and realized it was completely dark. It was near Dobbins Air Force Base. And I just happened to be the cop. And, for all I know, they're still arguing and fussing at each other on the side of the road. That was probably 1990. I didn't have anything else. Like, look, I got nothing. I mean, somebody in here is probably going to get stuffed in the trunk. And I don't need to see that. So.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. Legitimately lost.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. Did you want to, you touched on the advice for new officers. Did you want to elaborate on that?
I will tell you from an outsider's or maybe semi-outsider's perspective. I speak to a lot of cops every year, and I am just flat inspired. As much as it's crazy, as much as you hear all this stuff, I see young people, 20, 25 years old, college graduates, master's degrees, going into law enforcement. The biggest honor of law enforcement is when somebody in our military gets out and still wants to serve, and they pick law enforcement as the way they're going to continue to serve their community. And then when you look at what they're doing and how excited they are and how much they have a fire in their belly, they're ignoring the noise. And God, I see that. I'm just excited.
Yeah.
I'm enthusiastic, and I'm hopeful for what's coming in the next few years.
That's great. I'm happy to hear you say that. My friend Ken said something similar. He said, I'm still getting clients, and these are the ones that ignore all that. They just want to be a cop. Because the ones that really want to do it don't give a shit about all that crap. They're going to do it anyways. They don't listen to that. And like you said earlier, thank goodness. Because we need people to want to do this job. We don't just need we don't need warm bodies. We need people that want to do the job. We don't need people that want the benefits and whatever else they think it's great about. You got to want to do it. Otherwise, it's not the kind of job you can keep doing unless you want to do it, because it's, you get burnt out,
You can, and that's one of the things that I think another thing about our training that's come a long way is recognizing that people get burned out, recognizing that, so you went to a scene and a child was killed in a car wreck. No, I'm good. No, I don't care if you're good. You're going to take a couple of days and you're going to go talk to a counselor because, I was giving a lecture the other day and I had a bunch of videos, and one of the videos had a warning. It was from the news, and then it was on YouTube, and it said, "Warning, adult content may be disturbing to some viewers." And I paused it and I said, you know what? Everybody puts that on their YouTube videos. But that's what cops see every day.
Right.
Hundreds of times throughout their career.
Living color.
And you can't post an edited version of it on YouTube without putting an adult advisory on it. And that takes a toll. So, they've got to take care of themselves. Their families got to take care of them. And one of the things that I really push is the FOP, Legal Defense Plan, the Fraternal Order of Police. It's an unlimited legal defense plan. And I just don't think that anybody can be out here these days without somebody looking out after them. And it's a fantastic program.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll have to get more info from you about that on the side.
FOPlegal.com.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. We have, where I work, we work for a lot of small agencies or, regional agencies, and our unions are almost non-existent. We just have like a, agreement with the town. It's like we have like an association we pay money to, but we might have a lawyer on retainer, but they're not like law enforcement specialists. They're just, it's to make you feel a little bit better, but really it's not good. When I worked for a bigger place, we had a real union, and it was like, oh, we have an attorney. Like, he will come here and say things for us.
Yeah.
So That's good info, especially for country cops like me. Lance, can we talk about your books a little bit? Because you said
Sure.
the non-fiction books, or I said the non-fiction books, that's you've donated a bunch of the proceeds from that to LEO families.
Yeah, so the nonfiction books, the first one was When Cops Kill, The Aftermath of a Critical Incident. And all these are on LanceLaRussoBooks.com.
I'm going to go there right now.
LanceLaRussoBooks.com. Yep. And you can see them there. So When Cops Kill was the first one. I've been a firearms instructor for a long time. I said, we're not really telling people what to expect after they've been involved in a shooting. So it's for the officer, their families, their spouse, and the media, so they can really understand how these situations are investigated. We also put out Blue News. I wrote Blue News about the intersection of law enforcement and media. To date, I've probably done over 700 media interviews. And
wow.
Just letting people know, if you don't tell your story, someone else will. And you've got to get the story out that, yes, this is a shooting that's being investigated. Yes, it looks bad on video. There is no nice way to hit somebody with an ass baton or do a leg sweep on video. It's never going to look like they're dancing. It's always going to look bad.
Right.
But telling the story, how that officer that used deadly force in that downtown park has been at it for 25 years and has never used deadly force, never fired a shot outside of the firing range. Parallax is a set of fiction stories. They're short stories about law enforcement that probably will get people moving a little bit and realizing some of the stuff that we see on patrol. And some of those stories were actually, there's 4 in there, and I've got another one that has not come out yet. They're just stories that came to fruition from inside of my head working. Peacemaking is about a cop's walk with Christ. Some of the conversations I've had with cops.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yes, after they basically were brought up, one guy was brought up in a very, very strict Baptist home and was forced to take a life. And it really turned his ethos on end. Firefighters in the hot seat, all the profits go to firefighters. Great folks, I've represented a lot of firefighters, a lot of high-profile cases, and they're good folks, man. They're I always tell them the bravest thing I ever did at the scene of a fire was make sure no one drove over their hoses. So I was really good at that. But that's basically the only book I know about firefighters and OPS investigations. And then
where are you getting the time, Lance? You're doing so many things here.
Sleep is overrated. I sleep when I'm dead. But Hunting of Men is my first full-length novel, and that the best compliment I got about that was a 40-year cop who said that it was the most realistic cop book he'd ever read. And
cool.
I told someone awesome. if they want to read a book about the alcoholic homicide detective with 7 ex-wives who hates everybody, go read somebody else's book. You want to know how cops solve crimes? You want to know that they're funny, that some of them are introverted, that the homicide detective that came to your house may actually be a complete introvert. We had one guy in our department who taught firearms. When he passed away, we found out that he used to do oil seascapes at night in his basement. That's how he unwinded it.
That's funny.
Hunting of Men is about a young cop who goes to the homicide division and is asked to pull a cold case off the shelf and realizes he pulled the cold case of a murder of a police officer from his own agency. And I couldn't imagine what would be tougher and just pull at the heartstrings and pull that department apart. He winds up also running upon a sex trafficking ring, which is something I wanted to highlight. It's just a scourge on our society. But Johnny Till is the main character, and there's a series of books about him. That's the first one, and he winds up solving it. And if people go to LanceLaRussoBooks.com and sign up for our newsletter, they can get the free sequel to Hunting of Men. And Hunting of Men, by the way, is available as an audiobook, too. We got a really great person reading it on Audible.
Oh, sweet. I love audiobooks.
Yeah, but the signing up on LanceLaRussoBooks.com, they can download a serial novel. I always want to do one of those, where they wrote us a version every month. Well, you can download it for free. It's called Hijacking Justice, and it's 8 episodes. And Johnny Till gets into a shooting in a hostile jurisdiction. It starts out with him in jail for murder. So it's pretty intense.
It's awesome. I love it. Man, Lance LaRusso Esquire, thank you for coming on here, man. This was a blast. I had a really good time. I hope we can talk you into coming back sometime.
Absolutely. This was a lot of fun, and anything I can do to promote the profession, convince people to stay in it. And for those listening that are not law enforcement, go out and recruit somebody to be in your police department in your community, because that's the way we get good people.
Absolutely, yeah, and God knows we need it. All right, brother. Well, I really appreciate it. You brought it. You brought the thunder, man. It was good. I can't wait to put it out, and we will link in the show notes so everybody knows to some of Lance's books and his website and whatever else you have going on, whatever you want me to put there. People want to learn more about you, I'm sure, by this point. And yeah, do you mind? I'm going to do the outro. Can you wait in the green room for a second? I'll come back at you.
Absolutely. Right. I felt comfortable in there. The chairs are really comfy.
You're welcome. Hey, guys, what an episode. Fun guest. I'm so happy I found this guy. It's more people need to know about him. The guy's out there kicking ass and defending cops. It's really cool. Getting that overturned for Rashard Brooks is insane. For the Rashard Brooks shooting is so cool. Guys, thank you. Thank you for the 5-star reviews. I'm harping on it, but please keep doing them. Keep doing them. 5 stars on Apple. It's helping the show. It's getting more eyes on us. I can keep getting high caliber guests with those reviews rising. I'd like to get to 1,000. I was looking around, and there's podcasts I think that are subpar that have 1,000, and it's embarrassing for me when I go to the podcast meetings and I only have 650. So if you guys could help me out, if it's the only thing you do, 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Follow on Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, that's it for this week, and I will be back at you guys shortly. God bless.